To survive, boy will need an incredible skill. In this world, stability is maintained by making the strong even stronger, and the strongest can also eat more, thus increasing their spiritual energy. But one soldier discovers a mysterious power in this world. In the midst of a battle, the leader of one side is informed that the left flank is fighting well and managing to defend the plantation, but the right flank is being pushed back. Amid the war zone, humans resist the invasion of giant primates, wreaking havoc on the defensive lines. Among the protectors is Kai, who stands alone against a semi-human and calls his comrade Manso for help. However, Kai is knocked down and left vulnerable as new enemies surround the young fighter, while Manso is thrown away by a blow. Kai was about to be hit when a man strikes the primate from behind and saves the boy. Having done that, this warrior introduces himself as Alha, the eldest son of Moloch Vezin, and the humans around celebrate the arrival of their lord. Tired of the invasion of these apes, Alha commands the foes to behold the power of the earth god residing within him. Instantly, the divine crest is activated on the noble's face, a proof before all that he bears the god's blessing. Soon, the apes attack again, but Alha easily cuts off the arm of the first and the head of the second. In their own language, one of the primates tells the others to back off, while he himself steps forward to challenge the blessed warrior alone. This ape is different from the others as he also bears a divine crest that radiates on his face, which theoretically would make the fight balanced. Confident, the semi-human charges with all his fury, but Alha's speed is unmatched. Using his agility, the man dodges a powerful blow while delivering an extremely deep cut to his opponent, ending the battle sooner than anyone could have imagined. Thus, the inhabitants of Lag Village raise their flags and celebrate the victory, as the remaining apes flee following the death of their leader. Observing the horrifying chaos left on the battlefield, Manso comments to Kai that they survived another day. Amid this, Alha extracts the divine stone from the enemy chief to feed on it. Then he orders his allies to do the same with the stones of other dead primates. Consuming the substance, the Lord is graced with a reddish aura around his body. Manso breaks a divine stone and shares it with his comrades. Before partaking, he gives thanks to Mother Earth and the spirit of the brave Earth God passed down to them by their ancestors. As the soldiers ingest the substance, they feel their spiritual energy increasing. Since eating the marrow of a divine stone boosts spiritual energy and makes you stronger, Kai wants to take more. But Manso warns him that it won't happen because they are merely common soldiers. Amid this, a warrior informs the Lord that the other stones will be delivered to the castle. An older fighter named Master Basco tells Manso and Kai that most of these items should be delivered to the blessing bearers, like Lord Alha. After all, stability is maintained by making the strong even stronger. That's how this world works. Realizing this, Kai laments that common soldiers like them need to become stronger without the aid of such useful resources. Later, at a feast involving the village residents, the leader declares that human lands in remote areas like theirs have been under attack by semi-humans for a long time. Yet Lag has been defended thanks to the effort of its brave warriors. He, Moloch Vezin, is proud of each one of them. Sick of the talk, Manso just wants to eat quickly, and luckily for him, Moloch concludes the speech with a brief prayer of thanks to Mother Earth. Elated, Manso attacks the food but struggles with a part of the meal that is extremely tough to bite. Around him, another soldier at a table would love to eat as much as his comrades. Then a companion remarks that he just needs to work harder. By the way, Kai notes how lucky Manso is to get more grub than him, and the friend replies that he isn't the squad leader for nothing. With that said, Kai vows to train until he drops and gets stronger for a more worthy diet. Keeping his promise, the young warrior trains with his spear in the middle of the night, but ends up falling on his back on the ground after missing a step. Definitely, the meager food he gets isn't enough. As our grandmothers say, an empty sack cannot stand upright. Furious, the boy yells for a rice ball. Then Manso arrives at that very moment and asks what the heck a rice ball is. The friend explains that it just came to his mind, and although he doesn't know what it is, he's sure it must taste good. Manso responds that the kid sometimes really flips out, which he agrees with completely, even if he has no idea why. Finally, Kai asks his buddy to look at the village graves meant for people with families, and then compare them to the graves for people like him, who have no parents or siblings. They are just twigs and stones covered in vines because these people have no one to mourn their death. Therefore, the boy believes he is doomed to be forgotten. Being honest, he feels as though he never lived in this village from the start, and this creates a need to not accept this reality. And that's why the warrior will become as strong as he can to survive. For that to happen, he needs to eat the little food available and train harder than anyone else. But not just that is enough. To survive, Kai needs something to help him win battles, like a skill that could elevate his status to another level. Listening to every word, Manso reinforces his theory that this kid lives in a fantasy world. Meanwhile, Alha is in the middle of a discussion with his sister Jose. According to the Blessed Warrior, their father does not expect the girl to do what he does, considering that the women of the Baron's house do not need to learn to fight. Saying this, Alha takes the staff from his sister's hand and walks away, and Jose laments that she could have helped the village if she were a man. Returning to the private, he's training with the squad leader who makes it clear that the kid won't win any battles if he just keeps backing down. At one point, Kai is hit and falls on his back again, but instead of colliding with the ground, his body simply sinks into a fantastical sea that was covered in embers. Suddenly, an electrical reaction charges his floating body up to a modern city in another world, while his hand generates a layer of strange energy. Kai wakes up at this very moment and starts to believe he was the victim of some magic. Manso thinks he's knocked another screw loose in the poor kid's head with the blow and apologizes, but Kai gets up with strange confidence and a smile on his face. Alone with his thoughts, he reflects that he was confronted again with memories of things he never experienced in life. Sometimes he sees unknown memories that he's never heard of, and as far as he knows, some people are like that. But there's no way he can tell someone he also goes through this, not even Manso. In fact, it was these memories that introduced Kai to rice balls, but these visions changed nothing in his life, even if it is magic or something of the sort. Indeed, Kai has never seen magic in his life because that's something that only exists in fairy tales, but for some reason, these things keep appearing in these weird visions. Now, if by some chance he could use spells in a battle, it certainly wouldn't be bad. Later that same night, Moloch Vezin receives a message through one of the village's trained eagles. Upon entering his home, he discusses with Olha about a horde of orcs that appeared in the forest to the west, indicating that the battle will be fought near Vila Banya. The alliance ceremony is due in a few days, so Vila Lag must hurry there. Yesterday it was the monkeys, and now the orcs are ready to cause headaches again. Moloch laments that the soldiers simply don't have time to rest, but his son reminds him that it is a soldier's duty to march and shed blood to defend their land without question. Still, the leader argues that all the villagers are Moloch's children. Unable to sleep, Kai comments on the absurdity of producing flames with his hand. In the bed next to him, Manso wants to understand what trip he's on now, and Kai explains that he was thinking about something like a waking dream. Manso says that it might not be a dream, as there was once a traveling monk who, without a fire sign in a completely dark place, raised his finger and summoned flames, using it as if it were light. Kai is impressed by this and asks if it's really true, and his friend says it's just a story he once heard. The next day, the young dreamer leaves the dormitory early in the morning and thinks about what he heard before falling asleep. Perhaps, for some reason, he might also be able to draw fire from his fingers. That is, if this magic thing uses magical power. If that's what it is. As far as it is known, this business is obtained by gathering the mysterious power that exists in the world. And the world in which Kai lives is also made of a mysterious power. Spiritual energy is within each person and increases when they eat divine stones. If a good amount of this energy is gathered, perhaps the boy might be surprised with something special. To test his theory, Kai first goes to the plantation at the back of the dormitory and tries to summon fire with his finger through a vocal command, but nothing happens. Then, he holds his wrist with the other hand and focuses all his mind on the finger, but it seems that mere desire is not enough. The question would be how he can gather spiritual energy. Considering that this energy is probably inside his chest, Kai focuses his mind to feel that area of his body, and feels a kind of heat where his divine stone would supposedly be. Letting himself be carried away by this heat, he points his finger forward again to try to shoot fire, but with the force he was making, it was easier to drop his butt. Amid this, a legion of orcs marches westward, leaving a trail of dead humans along the way until reaching the vicinity of Vila Lag. Without delay, Master Basco learns from a message from the Baron of Villa Bagna that the enemy species is observing their movement from within the forest. In a joint action, soldiers from both villages unite to investigate the woods, and when orcs are seen lurking, a group of human scouts advances on them, including Kai and Manso among the battalion. Manso pierces the chest of the first target and knocks him down. Kai tries to maintain his balance amidst this duel, but ends up being hit by a comrade from Bagna who was thrown on top of him. The responsible orc slowly approaches his next victim, who is trapped under the dead soldier and can't get free. But just when he would be killed, Kai is saved by numerous arrows that hit the monster. Enraged, Manso orders Kai to stop messing around, while the young fighter feels a sharp pain in his leg. Meanwhile, Lord Alha shoots through the trees of the forest and sinks an orc's head into the ground without even needing his weapon. At the same time, the other giant pigs that saw what happened to their buddy flee, and Alha chases after them. A soldier thinks about pursuing the enemy as well, but a colleague warns that it's no use, as they are invisible to the Lord's eyes. Manso is forced to carry his injured partner, who apologizes for causing this trouble. Suddenly, a soldier alerts that Lord Alha has left this area to the soldiers, which confuses the squad leader since they still have orcs in the fight. Kai asks his friend to leave him there, but of course, Manso refuses and carries the young man back to the base. Master Basco orders the rest of the squadrons to spread out and run, so the orcs can't pursue everyone. To the misfortune of the young injured man, there was an orc pursuing him and his companion, but very slowly just to have fun. Knowing that the two will die there if things stay as they are, Kai asks Manso to leave without him. After all, Manso would do the same if it were the other way around. Saddened by the harsh reality, the ally promises to tear the vines off the boy's tomb, then runs off. Finally, when Manso takes off running, Kai heads back into the eye of the storm, where his comrades are fleeing and dying at the hands of rival semi-humans. Meanwhile, the young man refuses to die, reminding himself of this as often as necessary while memories of his life flash before his eyes. Soon, he stops when he senses the presence of his pursuer and demands that he stop hiding and face him. As a last resort, the human attempts to cast magic from his finger, but nothing happens. Suddenly, a machete flies towards the boy, slicing through his shoulder and causing faint sparks to fly from his index finger. The orc who threw the machete charges at the boy and grabs his neck tightly. Yet Kai continues to refuse to die, not wanting his spiritual energy to be extinguished in this place. With that, the boy's chest begins to burn so intensely that it ignites slightly stronger sparks on his finger. Kai points his finger at the enemy and orders fire magic to appear, and that's exactly what happens. A layer of flames spits out into the face of the giant pig with such intensity that it forces the brute to release the human. In the end, the orc tries to rejoin the fight but succumbs to his injuries and falls. Watching what happened, still amazed, Kai feels proud of himself, although he can't control the fire still covering his hand and burning his body. To make matters worse, he collapses to the ground without knowing why, and now a chill begins to take over his body as if his life is being drained by having used too much spiritual energy. This makes Kai think he might die right there, but since he managed to ignite the fire, he imagines he might also be able to extinguish what remains on his finger, perhaps with water. Moreover, this reminds him that spiritual energy flows like water, and that it's necessary to close the imaginary gate to stem the flow. As if that weren't enough, the orc manages to get up and goes after the boy. Faced with this life or death pressure, Kai closes the gates of his mind and stops the flow of water that sustains the flame on his finger. However, still weak, the boy is carried by the pig without being able to react. Even though he can barely see due to his injuries, the orc takes his victim to a cliff to kill him as he deserves. But since he was going to die anyway, Kai takes a final breath and slashes the belly of his adversary with his knife. In this motion, both of them fall off the cliff and plunge into the water waiting below. Check out these videos appearing on your screen and subscribe so you don't miss the next part.